Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today we're going to take a look ahead at the World Cup taking place in Val di Sole this weekend. With me here to do that is Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me.
The World Cup this weekend is not taking place on Sunday, it's taking place on Saturday to accommodate for the World Cup football final taking place. That means that the starting times have also been altered to avoid for the third place match. Racing takes place on Saturday, 17th of December. Women's race starts at exactly 1 o'clock, with the men's race starting at 2:30 Central European time, that is. Despite these changed starting hours, the racing will be live and uninterrupted on GCN Plus, and you can get a 25% discount on your annual GCN Plus subscription with the link gcn.eu/cxsocial to watch all the road and cyclocross racing uninterrupted. Now let's go and talk about the men's race. Issam, let's take a look ahead at that first. No Wout van Aert, no Tom Pidcock, but yes, Iserbyt, yes, Laurens Sweeck, and also yes, Mathieu van der Poel. I think there's no way we can go around it. Van der Poel on this course, basically a playground for him. He is the top favorite.
Yeah, indeed. I think that Van der Poel definitely has, is going into this race as the main favorite because his technical abilities, he loves to play on the bike, and I think that with Val di Sole, he's gonna get a great playground for him to showcase his skills. And I think that if he lost this race, it meant that he either made a mistake or had a mechanical in some way that put him out of the race. But I don't think that in a relatively fair fight, I don't think that he is going to be put under pressure by any of these guys, purely based on the fact that we know that he is, in terms of power, he's a level above these guys, with all the respect, obviously. And, with the technical abilities that he has, it's just someone that really enjoys to do these kind of things, I think. And yeah, it's interesting to see how he deals with the snow. But yeah, looking at it, I think that he's definitely one of the guys to look out for.
Yeah, racing on the snow is incomparable to everything else. It probably comes closest in some aspect to riding through the sand, but it's really something else. And Van der Poel last year said he was watching the race last year and thought it was a pity that he couldn't race there, and that he was super happy to have the opportunity now. He loves cross, he loves the technical abilities, and on the snow it's like you're riding on the edge through every corner. Everybody will make mistakes. Last year we saw that almost everybody made mistakes, or probably everybody did. It's just about finding the balance between risk and reward. So you need to limit your mistakes. Like, that's how all races go, but even more the case in a race like Val di Sole, where you're riding on the edge through many corners. The course this year has undergone some changes. We will see a bit more climbing and off cameras in the second part of the course, and the first part of the course has become a bit less technical according to the course map. I do expect there to be a bit more corners than there are on the course map. Last year this was also the case, and it's usually the case that there are always a couple of extra corners that you don't necessarily see on the course map. But yeah, it should be a bit faster. And the weather at the moment, well, we don't really know how reliable the forecast is, but it indicates fresh snow on race day, and that would then again completely change the circumstances as well, because now the course has been prepped, it's been shoveled, because there was over 20 centimeters of snow there this week, and if you're going to cycle through that, it's just going to become more running than riding. So it's out of essence that it needs to be shoveled, but it compresses the snow, meaning you ride on a slippery, compressed snow layer without necessarily falling away in the snow. But if there's fresh snow, it's going to be even more slipping and sliding. So that could be interesting. I do agree that Van der Poel is the top favorite, but behind that, who are you looking at to not necessarily cause an upset, but to end second?
Well, I think that you definitely have to consider Michael Vanthourenhout, who is somebody that is definitely going into a relatively good season. Last year when he was here as well, he was able to get second place. So I think that with his experience on the course and his form at the moment, he's definitely one of the guys that could fight for for second place. I think that Iserbyt is somebody that might struggle a little bit if it's more of the same as last year. Definitely if you base it on the results of last year, but if it's going to be a bit faster, who knows? Then it might be something that Iserbyt can handle also quite well. But yeah, it's difficult to say how that will play out. I mean, we're also going to be joined by Sweeck, who we didn't see last year in the snow, and how is he going to be dealing with that? Normally, if you're good in the sand, the snow shouldn't be a big issue, but it's different circumstances for him, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he he deals with the snow for sure for Sweeck.
I mean, it is important to distinguish between sand and snow. I mean, the comparison has been made a lot, and in some extent, from personal experience, there is a bit of the same feeling, but it only goes if like the snow is super loose. If the fresh snow is loose, you can ride it as if you're riding through the sand to some extent, because your bike will do the work. But that's really just one type of snow. You have different type of snow crosses, and that will change the way you need to ride through the snow. And Val di Sole, as said, is probably not going to be fresh snow, although it might fall. So it depends. Like, you can't, snow is just something unique. You can't just put a sticker on, this is how to ride through snow, because there's so many different things. But having said that, I do expect Sweeck to be good. There have been snow crosses in the past, not that many. I remember Lille, which was a semi-snow cross. There were quite some paths, and the men's race, the snow did influence it, but mainly because it was cold and some corners got a bit more tricky. But it's nothing compared to Val di Sole or Hogerheide 2013. Like, that was the real deal, those snow crosses. This, what we have seen in the past years, with the exception of Val di Sole, it was a bit mid. It was not what I fancy with the snow cross like we had in the 2012-2013 season. It was just so much snow. Almost every race in the Christmas period had snow, and that gave a different dynamic. Sweeck should be able to do well. He's pretty all-round this season. I don't know how much the climbing in the second part will affect him. Last year, the big climb-up was running, so it doesn't really matter too much, although Vanthourenhout is also a good runner. I don't know how Iserbyt will do, but first I would stick to Sweeck in my analysis, and yeah, I think he could do well. He looks to have a good control of his bike, looks to be in pretty good form. I don't know if he's training in Spain this week. I don't know if he trained in Spain last week. There's no information on this publicly available, but I do imagine him trying to find some freshness and form before the Christmas period, so it wouldn't surprise me if he's gone to his apartment in Mallorca to build a solid base in the sun, which pauwels is doing now as well. So, yeah, I would probably say Sweeck is going to be good, but last week in Dublin we saw a relatively good Iserbyt who just got over enthusiastic in the first part. Also saw a relatively good Vanthourenhout who just didn't find a course that was perfect for him. This course would also not be perfect for him, but he was second here last year, so yeah, I think it could be a pretty open battle between these three riders for second place, unless you have anybody else to include.
No, I think those are the main guys. It's interesting what the Swiss riders will do that are going to be participating. Normally when it's when there is snow involved, and especially with those freezing temperatures, it can cause it can create a course that's a little bit more slippery than it was last year as well. And in that case, you never know at that point. It's almost going to be a lottery, the race, if it's really going to be that slippery. But with the new snow that's going on to be on the course, then it's different again. So I think that the guys that we have just named, those are the guys that you have to look out for a podium. But if the circumstances are going to be a little bit more slippery, and that can create chaos, and that can even create results that we normally do not see. And actually, I hope that we will get some of that chaos.
I would add another name. I would add Kevin Kuhn. I mean, you mentioned the Swiss riders, and the Swiss riders together with the Czech riders, especially the Czech riders, they always come forward when there's a mention of a snow cross. There are unfortunately no Czech riders in the men's race as far as I'm aware of, but like I will never forget Bina winning the World Cup in Hogerheide, and the interview afterwards, they were just like, wait, I need to talk English with this guy, and it was just so much confusion that Bina won a World Cup race. Like, he had been around forever, or, well, not forever ever, but he'd been around for quite a while. He was nearing the end of his professional career, and yes, he had done well. Yes, he finished 4th at the Tower World Championships, also in the snow, but they just never expected him to win a World Cup because it was such a surprise and such a shock, and those things can happen. With the level of Van der Poel, I don't expect it. I think that Van der Poel simply has like the ability to do everything, like the super class, the star effect that's around him, that he can do anything. His form is better than the rest, his technique is better than the rest. It's just going to become increasingly difficult to beat him. So no, for a win, I don't expect an upset like that, but Kuhn last year got a 7th place here, made a significant leap forward this year. He has experience racing in the snow in some of the Swiss races. The back then still AKZ Cross had quite some snowy races. The Swiss Championships have been held in the snow a couple of years. He has the experience, and experience in the snow is so useful. So yeah, I would not put it past Kevin Kuhn to get a podium and a top 5. Yeah, I would say Kevin Kuhn is going to get a top 5 here.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. The issue, however, is that, as we have seen last year as well, it is a course where you can spend quite some energy and actually do too much in the beginning of the race, and then at the end of the race you have not much left in the tank, and it's going to be a race where you also have to be smart with your energy and in general how you try to manage the race, because I think that will also play a role. You need to stay cool despite the fact that you might have an issue here or there. I try to compensate with your technique. That's definitely a thing that should be considered, and I think that those things will be important for this race 100%. Who is going to be the one that makes the least amount of mistakes, that was able to race very consistently. Those things is what we see in a mud race, but I think just the power output might be a little bit compromised because of how slippery it might be, and how difficult it can be as well for the riders. So I think it's definitely possible. Kuhn can definitely surprise us with a top 5. He has been going well. His starts definitely are up there with the best. So that will be interesting to see how he will manage as well.
And starting is important on this course, because right after the start you go into a downhill, and if you're in the middle of the pack there, you're going to be screwed, because there's going to be people making mistakes, slipping and sliding, going above their abilities. And we saw that especially in the women's race last year. There were already gaps formed so quickly. After 2 minutes there was already a group of 4 that established the lead, and then past the pitch they went to this steep off-camber that went upwards, and there was one track. Lechner made a mistake there, held up everybody else, and Pieterse, who was caught behind, needed to put in a lot of effort to come back. And then if you go too far into the red, you're going to be making more mistakes, and on a course like this, a mistake very quickly results in a crash. So the start is important. I would say more important than normal on this course. I am curious to see what I find when I'm there on Friday and walk the course and see the changes. Maybe the first part has really become a lot less technical, and therefore the start becomes a bit less crucial. But I would still stand by that it's important to have a good start on this course to get in a rhythm and settle at the front of the race without needing to waste energy more than on other courses. Let's go and make some predictions then, I would say. Well, who do you fancy, Issam?
I think that's for number 1. There's not going to be much discussion, but yeah, Van der Poel is definitely the main favorite, so I would put him at number 1. I tend to lean more to Vanthourenhout for second, just because of what we have seen last year as well. So I think that he is definitely the guy that could take second, and then for third I would say Iserbyt. I think that he is definitely in good form, and we have to wait and see how he will perform in the snow, and maybe he can perform better than he did last year.
I will agree with you on the winner, Mathieu van der Poel taking the win. but I would say that the second place is going to go to Laurens Sweeck. And then the third place, I'll go with the surprise. I'll stick by my man Kevin Kuhn, third place. Let's go and take a look ahead at the women's race then. This week the Belgian media have been writing a lot about Sven Nys criticizing the World Cup for having, the current format with 14 races, too many races, and that led to small starting fields, or at least that's what he was afraid of. And in the Netherlands we could see the effects of riders taking rest or prioritizing racing in Belgium the past couple of weeks, with small selection for Dublin and also 8 riders in total, only 4 Dutch women here in Val di Sole, but overall the start list looked relatively good. 46 participants in the women's race, almost 50 participants in the men's race. Those are promising signs, mainly because other countries do turn up. A lot of Italians, some Americans coming over after the nationals, a couple of Canadians, a bit more Belgian riders on the women's side this week. Germany, Czech Republic, Foch Racing. Overall promising signs, but let's not go into that for too long. What do you think? Again, a battle Van Empel, Pieterse?
Normally that would be the battle that we are going to be looking at, because those two are just at the moment a level above the rest of the competition. Obviously, I don't think that it will be the same as we have seen in Dublin, but it will definitely be something that is quite comparable in a way in terms of the difference between the two. But I think what definitely will play a role as well is the amount of mistakes that they will make. We have seen Van Empel make quite some mistakes in some of the races. I think that Overijse definitely was a race where Pieterse had the upper hand, and Van Empel was struggling a little bit also in the technical sections, despite the fact that she's technically quite okay, but just making some mistakes left and right. And I think that Val di Sole is definitely a course where mistakes can be made, and you need to make sure that you make the least amount of mistakes of your competitors and have a very good day, and that will definitely play a role in the race. But normally those two are the ones that will be the leading women for in this field.
Based on last year, I would definitely say Van Empel slightly has the upper hand over Pieterse. Van Empel last year looked better on the course than Pieterse, but it is important to note that despite Van Empel winning the race last year, she was not necessarily the strongest on the day. Marianne Vos that day was better, but Vos had a mechanical issue, lost a lot of time with that, was 40 seconds down and then came back and then ultimately messed up herself. Like that incident with the Poel, it was probably a race of the season, but it was the mistake of Vos. That's not bad luck, that was just a mistake, and that cost her the win. So Van Empel probably slightly has the upper hand based on the experiences we have with last year, where Pieterse was making too many mistakes. But on the other hand, when you race in the snow, confidence is super important, and I would tend to think that Pieterse has a bit more confidence than Van Empel, at least how I've assessed racing the past couple of weeks. Van Empel is always a bit, at least appears to me, to be struggling with the role of leading woman still and making some mistakes. Like in Dublin, she should have tried to go into the sandpit first, because throughout the race she was struggling there, and in the end she gets away with it, but it's not been flawless on the end of Van Empel. And Pieterse looks a bit more confident and a bit more ready to take it on than Van Empel, and that could make a big difference on a course like this in the snow, where you need to have confidence. Okay, I'm going to steer this much, I know what my bike will do, and I'm going to send it through the corner. You can't have this, I don't know. Van Empel is just super strong and can compensate for those mistakes, but on this course, I don't know. It's a toss-up. I would say 50-50.
Yeah, definitely. Considering how close they are in a way, it's definitely a 50-50. It's the one that, just makes the word mistakes is something that we are saying time after time, but that's definitely going to play a role, and the start is going to be important as in any race, but I think in this one also. And just, the one with the least amount of mistakes and the best of luck might be victorious, especially because on a course like this, the margins of error are just a big, there is more chances of having an error left and right. So I think that definitely, will play a role. And it's going to be an interesting battle, I think, if they have the first couple of laps they are with each other, and then it's going to be interesting to see who will join them, because it will be interesting what Alvarado can do. Rochette is also coming back in the World Cup circuit, and that's definitely ones to look for.
Yeah, I don't know about Rochette. I mean, last year, yes, she was very good. She could have even won this race if it wasn't for a couple of silly mistakes, and she had a good period of form. But she had that COVID infection over the summer and struggled ever since. And yes, things have been improving, but overall, it's still a relatively wasted season, I would say. I mean, I don't think that the indications are there that she can win or podium this race. I would expect, just like in Dublin, 2 leaders up front. No Betsema. Tad surprising that she skips here. I think she is staying at home and it has to do with the travel or rest. I'm not too sure on that. But yeah, it is what it is. No Betsema here. Alvarado is here. I don't know what Alvarado can do in the snow. I haven't seen anything from it. I think she could be fine. Could lack a bit of rhythm, but I would probably look at her for the third spot. I think that a name we have to mention is Silvia Persico, number 3 of the World Championship, starting her season here. Last year she wasn't all too good here. She was 10th, behind her Italian teammates of Lechner in 4th and Arzuffi in 7th. I therefore put a minus behind the name of Persico, despite showing good form in the relatively weak Italian races. She just doesn't seem to have it in the snow. Last year was a good season for her, but in the snow, I doubt it. What do you think about Persico?
Well, I expect an improvement from last year, but we can conclude that snow is definitely not something that she is great at. But you can compensate her. So I think that with the form that she has, she's definitely grown as a cyclist in general. She has the power output, despite the fact that that might actually be compromised as well in a course like this. So yeah, it's interesting to see what she can do. I don't think that she will be able to finish on the podium, but I think that she might be able to sneak into a top 5 or just be outside of it.
Final name I think we need to mention here is Catablanca Vash, maybe together with Marie Schreiber, making it 2 names. I would say that Vash, based on the season so far, is definitely going to be a contender, but I'm not too confident that she will go that well on the snow. Based on what I've seen, like in the muddy downhills, I think it will be a bit sketchy for her, and therefore I would maybe place Marie Schreiber above her, because Schreiber is a rider that actually has a lot of confidence in her own abilities and has a very good feeling of what she can get away with and what she can't. So yeah, I would probably lean more towards Schreiber, but I'm curious to hear what you think about Schreiber and Vash.
Yeah, I think that a rider like Schreiber, who likes to start fast, as we established a little bit in this preview, that might play a role, and she has that ability to start fast. It's almost a certainty that she will be starting, or that she will be going into the first corner as the leading woman in the field, and I think that will definitely help her out. And from there, then she needs to just make sure that she manages like she did in Dublin as well, and then a lot of things are possible if the others are gonna make mistakes and you don't. For Vash, it's very hard for me to place her somewhere in this field with the course. For me, it's a bit double. I think that she's definitely talented to go through to get going through the snow, but just something that tells me that she might be lacking a little bit. So yeah, it's difficult for me to place her, but normally, Vash is definitely somebody that could end up in the top 5 if she has a good day.
Let's go and make some predictions then, Issam. Who do you fancy for your top 3?
I will lean more towards Pieterse, just because of the mistakes Van Empel has been making this season so far in a couple of races. I would give the benefit of the doubt to Pieterse and give her or predict her as the winner. and I would say then Van Empel in second. At third place, I would say Alvarado. Despite the fact that we don't really know how she will cope with the snow, but I think that Alvarado is someone that definitely can ride a bike, and in this field normally should be the one that will fight for the third place.
My podium will be Fem van Empel ahead of Pieterse. And then for third place, I am also going to be taking a risk here. I will be taking Mari Schreiber for third here, as I expect a relatively open battle between a bunch of riders behind Van Empel and Pieterse. Before we end this week's preview podcast of the Val di Sole World Cup, we were not able to give the results of the Men's Elite American Championships in our previous podcast about the Dublin World Cup. We now know that Curtis White took the national title there in an epic battle with Eric Brunner. And finally, there's been some cyclocross news. Tom Meuse has announced to retire from cyclocross with immediate effect. After his performance in Essen, he could mentally not turn the tide, and also in terms of form, things weren't going the way he wanted. So he's decided to call it a day and end what was a pretty illustrious cyclocross career, one of the most gifted riders technically ever. And, well, not necessarily ever, but definitely of his generation. Like, the display we've seen from him, it's been insane, and especially in the early years of this decade, he was consistently fighting for race wins. Quite a shame to see him go in such a way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was, when I was starting to watch cyclocross, I think I started 2007, 2008, and then I think from 2010, he was definitely a talent that was coming up through the rankings, and he had many memorable moments in his career. I can remember that sprint that he had in Lille. But just overall, he was a guy that was, like you say, one of the better guys on a bike technically. He could handle a bike like no other. Jumping barriers was definitely something that he liked to do. When you had those Masters races, if I'm not mistaken, in Waregem or whatever it was, where they do these challenges of the highest achievable height in terms of jumping the barriers. He was a guy that was loved by everybody. I think there were no real haters in the field, and yeah, he was a great personality. He was, I cannot really remember moments from him where he was the bad guy in a way, and I think he's a great character. We have to be honest, the last couple of years were not the easiest for him in terms of results, and it was a bit disappointing. And I think that he realized that as well. And just wish him all the best for what he can do in the future, and hopefully we see him around in the sport, because he definitely deserves that.
Well, then I think we've covered it for this episode of the Cyclocross Social podcast. Looking forward to the racing in Val di Sole this weekend. Thank you for being here again, Issam.
Yes, thank you for having me, and apologies for my voice a little bit. I'm a bit sick, but I try to get through it, and hopefully the listeners will enjoy.
I think everybody has a cold at this moment in the Netherlands, and I will in fact be heading to the cold, getting my boots in the snow in Val di Sole this weekend, so bringing you some action for the podcast from the ground, live coverage on our Instagram and Twitter. And don't forget, if you want to watch this racing, get your subscription at GCN+. Head to gcn.eu/cxsocial, and we will see you guys this weekend with the Val di Sole podcast. And for once, only one podcast this weekend. See you guys then. Goodbye.